Take a deep breath, and let's hear a story about Elara, the moon princess who discovered that magic flows not from what we receive, but from what we give with an open heart. In the gentle embrace of ancient mountains where golden peaks kissed the clouds, lay the enchanted realm of Lunaland. Morning dew sparkled like scattered diamonds across meadows of lavender and chamomile, filling the air with a soothing fragrance that drifted through open windows. Soft whispers of wind carried melodies that seemed to tell stories of times long past, lulling even the most restless souls into tranquil contemplation. The rhythm of life here moved like honey from a spoon, slow, sweet, and with purpose that never needed to be rushed. Citizens of Lunaland greeted each dawn with grateful hearts, their faces turned toward the warm sunlight that blessed their peaceful existence. Princess Elara lived in a cottage of white stone and climbing roses at the edge of the silver forest. Unlike the grand palaces and stories of other kingdoms, she preferred simplicity and the company of woodland creatures who visited her garden each day. Her laughter was like the gentle tinkling of wind chimes, bringing joy to everyone fortunate enough to hear it echo through the valley. With hair the color of autumn leaves and eyes that reflected the changing sky, she moved through life with graceful kindness that endeared her to all beings. Each evening she would sit by her window and whisper gratitude to the moon that watched over Lunaland, its silver light the source of all magic in their realm. Kale, the reluctant unicorn, had lived for 300 years and considered himself too old for adventures. His silver-blue coat shimmered with constellations that shifted with his moods, currently displaying his mild annoyance at being awakened before noon. Despite his grumbling, his heart was loyal and true, having served as guardian to royal families for generations with unwavering dedication. The soft padding of his hooves on forest paths made a rhythmic sound like gentle rainfall, soothing to any troubled mind that might listen. When he spoke, his voice carried the wisdom of centuries, though he often chose to keep his thoughts to himself, preferring observation to participation. Finn was barely 16, an apprentice sorcerer with more enthusiasm than skill, and a tendency to turn simple spells into magnificent disasters. Books and scrolls always spilled from his satchel as he hurried from one lesson to another, leaving a trail of magical theories wherever he went. His spectacles slipped down his nose when he concentrated, which was often, as his curious mind never stopped questioning the world around him. Despite his clumsiness, there was something endearing about his determination to master magical arts that seemed determined to master him instead. Every night before sleep, he would count blessings rather than sheep, finding gratitude in each small success among his many magical mishaps. Next, the fox spoke in riddles and appeared to know secrets that the moon itself might whisper. Her russet fur seemed to glow with inner light when moonbeams touched it, and her amber eyes held ancient knowledge beyond mortal understanding. She moved like flowing water between shadows and light, her paws making no sound even on beds of dried leaves and twigs. Time seemed different around Nyx. Minutes could feel like hours or seconds when she shared her cryptic observations about the nature of reality and dreams. Children of Lunaland left small offerings of honey cakes for her, believing that her presence brought good fortune and sweet dreams to those who showed kindness. The village of Moonhaven nestled in the valley below Princess Elara's cottage, its cobblestone streets winding between cottages with thatched roofs and chimney smoke that spiraled lazily into the evening sky. Lanterns filled with friendly fireflies illuminated pathways after sunset, their gentle glow creating pools of golden light that invited weary travelers to rest a while. The bakery sent forth aromas of cinnamon and vanilla each morning, while the sound of the blacksmith's hammer created a steady heartbeat for daily life. Children played games of imagination beneath ancient oak trees, whose branches created a natural cathedral of dappled sunlight and shadow. Every home had a window facing the moon, with cushioned seats where residents would sit to absorb lunar blessings before drifting into peaceful slumber. For generations, the moon had blessed Lunaland with magic that flowed like silver streams into the soil, the water, and the very air they breathed. This magic sustained crops that needed no tending, healed wounds without scarring, and granted glimpses of beauty that existed beyond ordinary perception. Elders taught children to cup their hands beneath moonbeams and make wishes that, if pure of heart, might materialize by morning as small treasures or fulfilled dreams. Musicians composed melodies inspired by the moon's phases, creating songs that could ease pain or bring joy to troubled hearts with just a few notes. The bond between Lunaland and the lunar light was sacred, an unspoken covenant of protection and prosperity that had never been questioned or threatened. Until one morning, when Princess Elara noticed the lavender in her garden had lost its scent, and the songbirds had forgotten their melodies. She turned her face to the sky, searching for answers in the fading stars as dawn approached with unusual hesitation. Something felt different in the air, a heaviness that made breathing require just a little more effort than it should, like swimming through water that had thickened ever so slightly. The usual morning dew was absent from rose petals and grass blades, leaving everything looking somehow duller, as if a thin veil had been placed between the world and the sun. Elara closed her eyes and reached for the familiar warmth of magic that had always pulsed within her veins, only to find it diminished, like the last ember of a once roaring fire. Citizens of Moonhaven soon noticed small changes that grew increasingly concerning with each passing day. Children's wishes no longer materialized, healing herbs lost their potency, and the village well water tasted of nothing but water, having lost its subtle sweetness and restorative properties. Elders gathered in the town square, their faces etched with worry lines that hadn't been there just weeks before, speaking in hushed tones about the moon that seemed dimmer each night. Gardens that had once produced abundance now yielded smaller harvests, forcing families to ration food for the first time in living memory. Animals from the forest ventured closer to human dwellings, seeking comfort from a growing sense of unease that permeated the natural world. The Council of Elders, 12 wise souls who had guided Lunaland through generations of peace, summoned Princess Elara to their circular chamber beneath the oldest oak tree. Ancient tapestries depicting the history of their realm hung from gnarled branches, moving slightly in the cool underground air, as if animated by memories trying to speak. The eldest among them, Thora, whose silver hair had witnessed a century of full moons, spoke with a voice that carried the weight of terrible certainty. Stars reflected in the pool at the center of their circle, showing disturbances and patterns that had remained unchanged since the founding of their kingdom. Something was happening to the moon itself, something unprecedented that threatened everything they held dear. Finn arrived at the council chamber uninvited, scrolls tumbling from his arms as he burst through doors that were meant to remain closed during sacred consultations. His words tumbled out between gasps for breath. He had discovered ancient text describing a prophecy about the fading of lunar magic and the four guardians, who must journey to the crystal caverns beyond the mist mountains. The elders exchanged glances of surprise and skepticism, for these caverns were thought to be merely legend, a bedtime story told to children about the birthplace of the moon's magic. Yet there was something in the apprentice's earnest expression that gave even the most doubtful pause to consider what seemed impossible. Perhaps the old stories contained more truth than they had believed, passed down through generations for precisely this moment of need. As if summoned by the telling of ancient tales, Kale the unicorn appeared at the chamber entrance, his constellation coat displaying shooting stars that streaked across his flanks in unusual patterns. Behind him padded Nyx, her amber eyes glowing brighter than should be possible in the dim light of the underground room. "The moon calls for help through those who still listen," she said, her riddle voice unusually direct in this moment of gravity. The unicorn nodded his silver-maned head in solemn agreement, adding that he had dreamed of crystal caves for 3 nights running, waking each time to find moon tears, rare magical gems, materialized on his pillow. There could be no clearer sign that the prophecy Finn had discovered was now in motion, requiring action rather than mere deliberation. Princess Elara felt a shiver of recognition pass through her body as pieces of destiny aligned like constellations, forming a clear picture in the night sky. Since childhood, she had dreamed of caverns filled with light that sang to her in voices only her heart could understand. Her mother, before passing into the realm beyond stars, had given her a crystal pendant that glowed brightest when Elara's thoughts turned to those dream caves as she drifted toward sleep. Now she removed this pendant from beneath her gown, its light pulsing with increasing urgency, as if responding to the very conversation taking place. The elders gasped in unison, for this was the moondrop pendant of legend, thought lost decades ago, the key that could unlock the crystal caverns and restore what was fading from their world. Dawn painted the horizon in gentle strokes of pink and gold, as four unlikely companions set forth from Moonhaven, carrying hopes and prayers of all Lunaland upon their shoulders. Princess Elara led their small procession, her simple traveling clothes belying her royal status, though the moondrop pendant at her throat glowed with unmistakable power and purpose. Behind her walked Finn, his satchel bulging with books and scrolls that he insisted contained vital information, despite Kale's skeptical sighs about the practicality of such academic luggage on a wilderness journey. The unicorn himself carried provisions in saddle pouches, having refused to be ridden, stating firmly that he was a companion, not a conveyance. Nyx darted between shadows at the edges of their group, sometimes disappearing for hours before returning with cryptic observations about paths unseen by others. Their first day's journey took them through the familiar comfort of the Silver Forest, where dappled sunlight created patterns like lace upon the soft moss underfoot. Birds still sang here, though their melodies seemed somewhat muted, lacking the vibrant complexity that had once made travelers stop and wonder just to listen. Each companion noticed different signs of the fading magic. Elara saw flowers closing too early in the day. Finn observed spell-sensitive mushrooms losing their luminescence. Kale felt a thinning of the air's natural enchantment, and Nyx noted wildlife behaving with unusual caution. Yet, despite these concerning changes, there was still beauty abundant in the filtered sunlight, the gentle breeze carrying forest perfumes, and the rhythm of their footsteps creating a meditation of forward momentum. They made camp as twilight embraced the woods, sharing a meal of honey bread and berry preserve around a small fire that Finn managed to light after 3 failed magical attempts and 1 successful match strike. The second day brought them to the edge of the Whispering Plains, a vast expanse of tall grasses that normally sang with voices of ancestors when wind passed through their hollow stems. Today, however, the plains offered only occasional murmurs, like a choir losing its members one by one, creating music increasingly filled with silences. Crossing this emptying ocean of grass required walking single file along an ancient path known only to Kale, who had crossed these plains countless times over his long centuries. The sun beat down with unusual intensity, as if compensating for the moon's failing light, causing sweat to dampen clothes and patience to wear thin as the day progressed. Finn's enthusiastic cataloging of every partial whisper they heard gradually subsided into tired silence, while Princess Elara focused on placing one foot before another, finding rhythm in movement when the landscape offered little variation. Even Nyx stayed visible, her normal independence replaced by a need for the companionship of their small group in this unsettlingly quiet place. That night, as they made camp in a rare stand of trees rising like islands from the grassy sea, Princess Elara unwrapped the moondrop pendant from its protective cloth and held it toward the rising moon. The crystal caught moonlight and transformed it, projecting a map of stars onto the ground before them, a celestial path leading toward mountains barely visible on the horizon. "The pendant remembers the way," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder as the crystal pulsed with inner light that matched her heartbeat. Kale leaned his unicorn head close, constellation patterns shifting across his hide as if responding to the map at their feet. Finn scribbled notes frantically by firelight, connecting the star pattern with astronomical charts from his most ancient scroll. Nyx simply sat at the exact center of the projected map, her amber eyes reflecting points of light until she appeared to be a small universe herself, containing all the wisdom they sought. Morning brought the discovery that Finn had spent the entire night translating an ancient text by firelight, his eyes red-rimmed but triumphant as he announced between yawns that he had deciphered crucial information about the crystal caverns. According to his translation, the caves were natural amplifiers of intention. Whatever thoughts and emotions visitors brought with them would be magnified and reflected back into the world. This explained why only the pure-hearted could restore the moon's magic, for any darkness in a person's heart would be equally amplified with potentially catastrophic consequences. The apprentice sorcerer looked at each of his companions with sudden gravity beyond his years, asking them to search their hearts for any lingering resentments, fears, or selfish desires that might need addressing before they reached their destination. Something in his unusually serious tone created a moment of silent introspection among them, each considering what they might carry that could hinder rather than help their sacred mission. Their path led gradually upward as they approached the foothills of the Mist Mountains, aptly named for the perpetual cloud that shrouded their peaks even on the clearest days. Vegetation changed from grasses to hardier mountain plants, small, determined wildflowers pushing through rocky soil, aromatic herbs releasing their essential oils when brushed against twisted pines growing at impossible angles from sheer rock faces. The air grew noticeably thinner, requiring deeper breaths that filled lungs with the sharp, clean scent of elevation and anticipation. Wildlife changed too. Eagles soared overhead on thermal currents. Mountain goats watched their progress with alert curiosity, and small furry creatures with oversized ears darted between protective boulders. These simple observations of nature's transitions brought a sense of grounding, normalcy to their increasingly extraordinary journey, reminding them that even the most magical quests unfold one step at a time through a physical world of sensory experience. On the third evening, they made camp beside a mountain stream that cascaded over smooth stones, creating a melody that invited deep relaxation after their strenuous uphill trek. Everyone's muscles ached pleasantly from exertion, creating that particular physical fatigue that promises the sweetest sleep as its reward. Finn demonstrated unexpected practical skills by catching fish with a makeshift net, while Princess Elara gathered mountain herbs to season their simple meal with flavors both vibrant and comforting. Kale discovered a patch of moonflowers, rare blooms that normally opened only in lunar light, struggling to unfurl in the growing dusk, their petals barely separating without the moon's encouragement. With gentle unicorn magic, he breathed silver light across the reluctant blossoms, coaxing them open as a gesture of hope for their mission's success. Nyx disappeared as usual, but returned bearing a perfect wild strawberry for each of them, somehow finding the exact number needed, despite never having counted her companions aloud. That night, beneath stars that seemed closer and brighter at this elevation, Princess Elara shared stories of her mother, tales she had kept private until now, feeling they were somehow relevant to their journey. She spoke of how the former queen could hear the moon singing on certain nights, songs no one else perceived, and how she had once followed that music into the mountains alone, returning days later with the moondrop pendant and a peaceful smile she never fully explained. The princess's voice grew softer as she described holding her mother's hand during her final moments, when the dying queen had whispered, "The moon remembers all who listen and will call you when the time comes." Finn quietly wiped tears from behind his spectacles, while Kale's constellation shifted to patterns of gentle blue, reminiscent of flowing water. Nyx, uncharacteristically, spoke without riddles, saying simply, "Some paths are written in our hearts before we are born, waiting for courage to walk them." The higher they climbed the following day, the thicker the mist became, until visibility extended barely beyond arm's reach in any direction. They relied on the moondrop pendant, which pulsed stronger with each correct step, growing dim whenever they veered off course. The world narrowed to immediate sensations, the sound of their breathing, the feel of stone beneath their feet, the brush of damp air against skin, the occasional drip of condensation from overhead rocks, and the comforting presence of companions nearby, though sometimes unseen. Conversation dwindled to essential communication, each person drawn inward by the mist's cocoon-like effect, creating space for thoughts and memories to surface from depths normally left undisturbed. For Princess Elara, this meant confronting her fear of failing those who depended on her. For Finn, facing doubts about his worthiness to participate in such an important quest. For Kale, examining his growing attachment to companions he had initially joined only from duty. And for Nyx, considering the possibility that some riddles should be answered rather than merely posed. After hours of climbing through disorienting mist, they emerged suddenly into unexpected clarity, a plateau bathed in sunshine, overlooking a breathtaking vista of cloud tops stretching to the horizon like a floor of pure white cotton. The contrast between mist and brilliance was so startling that they stood momentarily paralyzed, eyes adjusting and hearts expanding with the sheer beauty of what lay before them. Mountains rose like islands from the cloud sea, their peaks catching sunlight that transformed ordinary rock into gold and copper monuments to nature's grandeur. A circle of standing stones occupied the center of the plateau, ancient monoliths carved with spiraling symbols that matched patterns on the moondrop pendant. In the clear mountain air, tension and fatigue seemed to dissolve from bodies and minds, replaced by quiet reverence for this sacred place that had waited patiently for their arrival. Without discussion, they moved to form their own circle within the stone one, instinctively understanding that this moment called for ceremony rather than conversation. Princess Elara placed the pendant in the exact center of their circle, where sunlight struck crystal and fractured into rainbows that danced across ancient stone surfaces. The spiral carvings began to glow with inner light that pulsed in rhythm with the pendant's own illumination, creating conversation between artifacts separated by unknowable centuries, yet connected by purpose. A gentle humming filled the air, starting at the edge of hearing, and gradually intensify until it vibrated through their bodies like the lowest note of a cosmic instrument. Finn's scrolls unfurled themselves without his touch, pages turning by unseen hands until stopping at illustrations that matched their surroundings with uncanny precision. Kale's coat no longer displayed random constellations, but now showed the exact star pattern above them, though it was midday and no stars were visible in the blue sky. Nyx began to circle the pendant, her paws leaving trails of silver light with each step, completing 7 perfect rings before sitting back on her haunches with expectant stillness. With the setting sun came revelation as light shifted to the exact angle needed. One standing stone projected a shadow that pointed to a previously invisible pathway leading behind the circle to what appeared to be a solid rock face. As they approached this wall of stone, following the shadow path with reverent steps, moonlight crested the opposite mountain peak and struck the rock face, revealing veins of crystal within the stone that formed the unmistakable outline of a doorway. Princess Elara felt the pendant grow warm against her palm, pulsing now with urgency that matched her quickening heartbeat. Following instinct rather than instruction, she pressed the crystal against the center of the outlined door, holding it there as moon-bathed stone responded with increasing illumination. A vertical line of light appeared down the center of the door outline, widening slowly to reveal darkness beyond, the entrance to the crystal caverns they had journeyed so far to find, opening at last to those who had proven worthy merely by arriving with pure intention and united purpose. Cool air flowed from the cavern entrance, carrying scents of mineral wealth and ancient magic, undisturbed for centuries. Darkness met them not as an absence of light, but as a living presence that seemed to evaluate their worthiness with patient consideration. Princess Elara stepped forward first, the pendant now floating slightly above her palm, pulling gently toward the depths with undeniable purpose. "I need to enter alone," she said, her voice soft yet certain, surprising even herself with this knowledge that rose from depths of intuition rather than rational thought. Finn began immediate protest, citing every historical text that warned against separation during quests of magical significance, while Kale remained silent but moved his strong body to block her path, his eyes communicating concern more eloquently than words. Nyx, however, approached the princess and circled her legs once before sitting beside the cavern entrance, amber eyes reflecting understanding of paths that must sometimes be walked solo, regardless of companions' well-intentioned protection. Hours passed in tense waiting, night deepening around 3 companions who maintained vigil outside the crystal caverns, each processing anxiety in different ways as Princess Elara remained within. Finn paced relentlessly, reciting protection spells under his breath that faltered whenever his worry peaked, forcing him to start again with renewed determination. Kale stood perfectly still, facing the cavern entrance, his coat displaying gentle stars that brightened whenever shadow threatened to consume their small plateau, providing constant illumination that felt somehow reassuring. Nyx disappeared occasionally, but always returned to the same watchful position, sometimes bringing small comfort items, a perfectly smooth stone that fit satisfyingly in the palm, a feather of unusual softness, a sprig of lavender that retained its soothing scent despite the mountain altitude. They spoke little, united in focused attention on the cavern entrance, trusting their princess while simultaneously preparing for any need to rush to her aid should the slightest sign of distress emerge from the crystalline darkness that had swallowed her. Within the crystal caverns, Princess Elara walked a path of discovery that unfolded with each heartbeat, illuminated by her pendant's glow that reflected off millions of faceted surfaces surrounding her. The caverns were unlike anything described in legends, not simply hollows filled with crystal formations, but a living cathedral of light with its own consciousness that responded to her presence with curious welcome. Each chamber she entered seemed designed to reveal something specific, one filled with reflecting pools that showed moments from her childhood when joy had been most pure and complete, another echoing with voices of those she had helped throughout her life, their gratitude amplified into harmonies that brought tears to her eyes. In a particularly breathtaking space where crystals grew in spirals from floor to ceiling, she found herself surrounded by manifestations of her own dreams, not just those experienced during sleep, but deepest hopes for her kingdom and its people, given temporary form that danced around her like benevolent spirits celebrating possibilities not yet realized, but still within reach. The central chamber revealed itself after what felt like hours of wandering, though time moved strangely in this place of timeless magic. Here, suspended in the exact center of a perfectly spherical room, hung a moon crystal larger than Elara herself, the mother source from which all lunar magic flowed into Lunaland through countless connecting threads of light that extended from its surface like a web of silvery veins. Many of these threads had grown dim or broken entirely, explaining the weakening magic throughout their kingdom with visual clarity that needed no interpretation. The pendant at Elara's throat now pulsed in perfect synchronization with the great crystal, their resonance creating tones that vibrated through her very bones, with messages she understood not through words, but through whole body, knowing that transcended ordinary communication. She was being shown the nature of lunar magic itself, not a resource to be used, but a relationship to be honored, requiring reciprocal care rather than mere grateful acceptance. For generations, her people had received the moon's blessings without understanding the need to offer energy in return, creating an imbalance that had gradually depleted the great crystal's reserves. The moon was not dying but retreating, conserving what remained of its strength after centuries of one-way giving that should have been exchanged. Princess Elara sank to her knees in the center of the chamber, overwhelmed with sudden understanding of how innocently her kingdom had taken without giving, accepted without offering, received without reciprocating. Tears flowed freely down her cheeks, each droplet containing recognition of unintentional harm caused through ignorance rather than malice, yet harm nonetheless to something precious beyond measure. The great crystal seemed to respond to her genuine remorse, pulsing with gentler light that felt somehow forgiving, patient rather than accusatory, willing to teach rather than punish those who had failed through lack of understanding rather than deliberate neglect. Guided by intuition that felt like remembered knowledge rather than new learning, Princess Elara placed both hands against her heart and focused on gathering energy from her deepest self, love for her kingdom, gratitude for the moon's centuries of blessing, appreciation for beauty in all its forms, and joy found in simple moments of connection with other beings. She shaped these feelings into a glowing sphere between her palms, adding memories of starlit nights, children's laughter, music that moved souls to dance, kindness offered without expectation of return, and courage that bloomed in moments of greatest challenge despite fear's presence. This sphere of pure positive emotion grew until it hovered before her, containing essence of everything worth preserving in their lunar blessed way of life, not material comfort or magical convenience, but the deeper values and experiences that gave existence its deepest meaning and sweetest. Savor regardless of external circumstances or magical enhancement. With gentle breath that carried intention of purest service, she released this offering toward the great crystal, watching as her energy gift was absorbed into the larger structure, spreading through its matrix like healing warmth through a chilled body. Color returned to pathways that had grown dull, light strengthened, and veins that had dimmed, and a soft humming filled the chamber with tones of renewal and revitalization. The pendant at her throat rose of its own accord, floating upward until it touched the surface of the great crystal, merging temporarily with the larger structure and communion that transferred knowledge directly into Elara's awareness without need for words or explanation. In this moment of connection, she understood completely what needed to be done, how her kingdom must learn to complete the circle of giving and receiving, how gratitude must become not just a feeling, but an active practice of reciprocity, how lunar blessings were meant to flow in both directions rather than just one. When she emerged from the crystal caverns into pre-dawn darkness, her companions rushed forward with relief and questions that fell silent as they observed the transformation in their princess. Something profound had changed, not just in the pendant that now glowed with steady brilliance rather than fading urgency, but in Elara herself, who seemed to carry moonlight within her very skin, illuminated from within by understanding that transcended ordinary knowledge. "I know what we must do," she said simply, her voice carrying absolute certainty that required no evidence beyond itself. Kale bowed his noble head in immediate recognition of truth being spoken, while Finn stopped mid-question, mouth still open, but suddenly more interested in listening than asking. Nyx, perhaps least surprised of all, circled the princess 3 times before sitting at her feet, amber eyes reflecting what looked remarkably like satisfaction that a particularly complex riddle had finally found its answer after long seeking. Their journey home moved at the same outward pace, but felt entirely different in its energy. No longer a desperate quest against time, but a purposeful return, carrying precious cargo of wisdom rather than material solution. The mist parted more readily before them, mountain paths seemed less steep beneath their feet, and each pause for rest became opportunity for Princess Elara to share portions of what she had learned, preparing her companions to become teachers themselves once they returned to Lunaland. Finn absorbed every word with scholarly devotion, sometimes pausing her narrative to clarify connections with ancient texts he had studied, seeing familiar passages with new understanding illuminated by context previously missing. Kale's constellation coat shifted to display patterns that complemented her teachings, visual representations appearing across his flanks whenever words alone seemed insufficient to capture concepts beyond ordinary understanding. Nyx contributed rarely but precisely, offering riddles that were actually keys, unlocking deeper levels of comprehension when properly considered. Her cryptic speech, now recognized as deliberate teaching methodology rather than mysterious habit, As they descended through mountain elevations toward familiar landscapes, they noticed subtle signs of healing already beginning throughout the natural world. Moonflowers opened more fully than before, streams sang with clearer voices, night birds added new notes to evening melodies, and even the air itself felt somehow easier to breathe, charged with vitality that had been gradually diminishing for so long that its return felt both strange and wonderfully familiar. The moondrop pendant continued its steady glow, having become not simply key to a door but conduit for ongoing connection between Princess Elara and the great crystal, allowing her to monitor the strengthening flow of reciprocal energy as her newfound awareness rippled outward through invisible connections linking all living things within their realm. Each night before sleep claimed them, the companions gathered in quiet circle beneath brightening stars, practicing together the focused gratitude offering that would become central ritual throughout Lunaland, combining appreciation for specific daily blessings with conscious return gift of positive emotional energy, completing the circle of exchange that sustained lunar magic at its source. When they finally crested the hill overlooking Moonhaven, they paused in unified astonishment at the transformation already visible below. Gardens bloomed with renewed vigor, village lanterns glowed with increased brilliance, and citizens moved with lighter steps through daily activities, unaware of the specific cause but responding instinctively to the gradual restoration of what had been fading from their lives. Princess Elara felt tears of joy warm her cheeks as she observed children playing beneath the great oak tree, their laughter carrying upward like the most perfect offering to forces that sustained their magical homeland. Kale nickered softly beside her, his coat displaying patterns of celebration that shifted and danced across silver blue, eyed with jubilant energy rarely seen in his usually dignified presentation. Finn removed his spectacles to wipe moisture from his eyes, whispering calculations about exponential increase in magical resonance based on observations that combined scientific measurement with intuitive sensing in his uniquely balanced perspective. Nyx simply sat with tail curled neatly around paws, amber eyes reflecting satisfaction more plainly than words could express. Mission fulfilled precisely as ancient prophecy had foretold, though with wisdom gained that no prophecy could adequately predict. The council of elders gathered beneath the ancient oak that same evening, joined by citizens from throughout Moonhaven and surrounding communities, all called by irresistible intuition that something significant required witnessing. Princess Elara stood at the center of this circle, moondrop pendant glowing at her throat. Companions arranged supportively around her as she shared the wisdom gained within crystal caverns. Her voice carried effortlessly to every ear, explaining how lunar magic required balanced exchange, how gratitude must become active practice rather than passive feeling, how each citizen would learn to gather and offer positive energy through simple daily rituals that would strengthen rather than deplete their magical homeland. Children listened with wide-eyed wonder. Elders nodded with recognition of truth too long forgotten, and those in between found themselves already implementing her suggestions, even as she spoke, practicing the gentle art of conscious appreciation, followed by intentional offering of emotional energy upward toward the strengthening moon that smiled down upon their gathering with visibly increased brilliance. Over subsequent days, Princess Elara worked tirelessly with village teachers to develop age-appropriate methods for instructing everyone from youngest child to eldest grandparent in practices of reciprocal energy exchange. Finn contributed scholarly framework that satisfied intellectual minds, creating comprehensive manuscripts illustrated with diagrams showing invisible connections between personal practice and kingdom-wide effect, mathematical formulas demonstrating cumulative impact of individual contributions, and historical context revealing how ancient ancestors had maintained these practices before they gradually faded from collective memory. Kale visited schools and community gatherings, allowing children to observe his constellation coat, which now displayed educational patterns illustrating concepts too subtle for words alone, while his dignified presence lent credibility to new yet ancient teachings, being reintroduced to community consciousness. Nyx continued her mysterious wanderings, but could be found at twilight near particularly receptive individuals, offering perfectly timed riddles that inevitably led to personal breakthroughs in understanding. Her amber eyes witnessing moments of illumination was something very much like pride, despite her customary aloofness. Within one lunar cycle, changes throughout Lunaland progressed from subtle to unmistakable as citizens embraced reciprocal practices with wholehearted commitment. Gardens produced abundance once again, healing herbs regained potency, village well water returned to its sweetly restorative quality, and children's wishes began manifesting with reliable enchantment, that delighted even the most skeptical observers. Most significantly, a sense of deeper connection pervaded daily life. Connection not just with moon and magic, but with one another and the natural world that supported their existence. Appreciation growing for interdependence that had always existed, but now received conscious acknowledgement. Musicians composed new songs celebrating reciprocity. Artisans created beautiful objects incorporating spiral patterns reminiscent of crystal cavern formations. And cooks developed recipes intended to nurture both body and spirit, infusing food preparation with focused gratitude that somehow enhanced flavors beyond ordinary culinary skill. Evening gatherings beneath the strengthening moon became treasured community rituals, combining celebration, gratitude practice, and energy offering into experiences that left participants feeling simultaneously peaceful and vibrantly alive, connected to something profound yet as natural as breathing. Princess Elara established a new tradition of quarterly pilgrimages to the crystal caverns, selecting different groups of citizens to accompany her each season, ensuring that direct experience of the great crystal gradually extended throughout the population rather than remaining knowledge held by few. These journeys became highly anticipated honors, with participants returning as informal teachers who shared personal insights with family and friends, creating ever-widening circles of deepened understanding and commitment to reciprocal practices. The path to the caverns, once hidden and difficult, became more accessible with each journey, not through physical alteration of mountain terrain, but through strengthening, energetic connection that made finding the way increasingly intuitive for those approaching with proper intention. Travelers reported that the great crystal grew visibly stronger with each visit, its matrix filling with brilliant light that pulsed in perfect harmony with collective heartbeats of Lunaland citizens engaged in daily gratitude offerings, visible confirmation that their renewed commitment to balanced exchange was healing ancient imbalance through persistent, loving attention to relationship that sustained their magical homeland. On the anniversary of their original journey, the four companions reunited for private celebration beneath the full moon that now shone with radiance equaling the brightest in living memory. They sat in comfortable silence within Princess Elara's garden, surrounded by lavender and chamomile releasing soothing fragrance into evening air